You got to actually get in the top 10 the room to be in the conversation.
Yo, whoa, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Gardy3. And of course, to my right, like every week, this is my co-host, maybe the most knowledgeable guy I know in basketball. This is Mo Betta. Mo, how you doing today?
Doing great and a feel good Thursday, guys, or Thursday evening. Let me correct myself. Just glad to be here, chopping up basketball with my guy Gardy3. Welcome everybody to the N1 podcast, powered to you by Wire to Wire Network. Let's get it.
All right. So for all you new listeners or viewers, we always start out the same way every week. We love talking about underrated basketball players who, don't get enough love. So we're going to start out with our underrated player of the week. So, Mo, why don't you get us started? Who's your underrated player this week?
My underrated player this week, I'm actually going to go back a little bit. I'm going to go back to Shawn Marion, the Matrix.
Woo.
I think one of the most underrated two-way players in NBA history. The beauty of Marion's game, constant motion. He was explosive in the open court. You could say he was ahead of his time. Shawn Marion was a three, but at his best in Phoenix's 7 seconds or less offense, he was a power forward that nobody could run with and stay with. Elite defender, terrific finisher. Maybe had one of the quirkiest releases ever when it came to his jump shot. But Shawn Marion definitely underrated, played bigger than his size. He had multiple seasons where he averaged a double-double, terrific rebounder. He's one of those guys that we call a quick second leaper, like off his feet, first, second, third leap, like just blessed with explosive quickness. Shawn Marion, to me, just underrated and underappreciated.
No, I agree with that. But Shawn Marion's one of my favorite players of all time. Just the pure versatility he has on top of everything else that he does. And his shot was kind of odd looking, but you know what? It worked. He was pretty money with that. Not something I'd expect from a shot that's almost released at your hip, but he made it work for years.
Yeah, he pulled that from his stomach, it looked like. It was really quirky, but look, when you're that athletic, that quick, and you've got the motor that he has, he just worked himself into being a star.
Yeah, absolutely. So my underrated player this week, Mo, is he's actually playing now. I decided to go a little more recent with mine because everybody wants to talk about the Celtics, big starting five, but I don't think Al Horford's getting enough love because he's putting together another phenomenal season. I'm convinced that Big Al just will never age out of the league. The man's always effective no matter what situation he's thrown in. At times, he is one of the Celtics' arguably second best player during their playoff run leading up to their finals matchup versus the Warriors. So I think my underrated player this week, give me Al Horford.
I'm a big Al Horford fan. I've been a fan of his going all the way back to when he was at the University of Florida. Al is one of those guys, Brett, that most people don't even remember. I think Al's like a 5 or 6 time All-Star. Like he's had a terrific career. I think he's underappreciated. What I really like about him as he got older, as the game evolved, he extended his range. He wasn't known for being able to shoot the three, but he realized to stay effective in the current NBA, he had to extend his range, and he's become one of the better big man three shooters.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. And Gene has a question for us. Who has the uglier shot? Shawn Marion or Jakeem Noah's free?
It's Noah. It's Noah. I don't even know if that's a shot. Like that, whatever Noah's doing, it's hard to believe, but he actually practiced that thing. Like that, the only shot that's uglier than Noah's is Kid Gilchrist. Because when I watch Kid Gilchrist shoot, it looks like he's arm wrestling himself.
Yeah, I'm shocked that a coach didn't sit Jakeem down at any point and go, "Yo, this is terrible. We need to revamp this." Well,
look, he's not on the court for his offense. It's a hideous shot. Luckily, he was an elite defender and a terrific rebounder, and he didn't have to score a lot of points.
That's fair. He was still fourth in MVP voting in 2014. That was very impressive. So normally this is the part of the show where we talk about prospects, but I got something different, Mo. This is the most interesting argument that I've heard in forever. It is wild. So I never thought I'd have to do this, Mo. But just to give everybody a heads up, I had to make a TikTok today and explain to people that Michael Jordan could dribble with his left hand. I think it's this. There's this new sensation on TikTok saying we done with the 90s. The 90s are terrible. G Leaguers would average 50. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts, Mo. Like, first off, you've seen MJ play. We all know. Could he go left on you?
Yeah, he went left a ton. Was his left his dominant ball handling hand? No, it wasn't. Obviously, but to say that he couldn't go left is insane. The fact of the matter is he could go left, he could post up, he could go right. The thing about it is, what's his dominant hand? It's his right hand. So the scouting report will tell you to push Jordan left. It's a good plan if you can execute it. But it's the same scouting report that people will tell you that they've told you the better half of 15 years. James Harden, surprisingly, is going to go left. But how many times have people stopped James Harden in his prime from going left? Basically nobody. And you knew he was going left. You know Lamar Odom. Guess what Lamar Odom doing? He's going left. And he still got to his left hand. If you're Michael Jordan or LeBron James, by the way, where do people want to push LeBron? To his left.
Yep.
Because he's much more dominant going to his right. So I'm not sure where this debate or this, I don't even know if this is the debate. It just, somebody basically said, could he go left? He could go left if you made him go left, but if you couldn't make him go left, I'm just saying, think about this. One of Michael Jordan's most iconic dunks, he's on the baseline, on the left baseline. He goes left and destroys Patrick Ewing on one of his more iconic dunks. So ask Patrick Ewing if he can go left, because he made him famous on that play. This isn't a debate. This is somebody that has too much time on their hands. We should be having better discussions. This is not really a good discussion. The argument that I'm done with the 90s or done with the 80s, I'm done with the 90s and I'm done with the 80s unless we start having conversations about great players, which would, if you're a basketball fan and you enjoy the game, you invariably will have a conversation about all-time great players, and Larry Bird's name will come up. Magic Johnson's name will come up. And Isaiah Thomas's name will come up. You can either go back further. Iceman Gervin's name will come up. People to this day still constantly bring up a guy I never actually saw play, but I've been told how great he was. Pistol Pete Maravich's name will come up. That's what happens when you're dealing in basketball, not just in the current season, but when you start making player comparisons. So I'm done with the 80s. And the funny thing is, my guess is most of the people that say they were done with the 80s and 90s, they're probably born in the 90s, my guess. They were probably either born in the 90s or the 2000s. So you're done with something that you don't know anything about, or you should be grateful for the 90s because your folks met back then and there wouldn't be you if it wasn't for the 90s. So you can't be done with the 90s. You're ungrateful. Appreciate the 90s. It's too easy to just dismiss a different era and go, well, the players today are so much more skilled. I've heard the lazy take, the David West take, the bigger, stronger, faster. We've been through this before. They're actually not bigger, stronger, and faster. There are some anomalies like a LeBron. He's bigger, stronger, faster. There's a Kevin Durant, a 7-foot guy that can break you down off the dribble with a handle and a jump shot. He's an anomaly. Shaq was an anomaly, but Shaq's not from today's NBA. Shaq was from the 92 rookie class. Has there been a bigger, stronger player in the NBA since Shaquille O'Neal? The answer would be no. So stop with the stupid conversation about bigger, stronger, faster. Look, I love Evan Mobley. You like Evan Mobley, who's a developing young talent. Do you think that Evan Mobley could do anything to deter Karl Malone from getting anywhere he wanted to on the floor? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, in this current NBA, you know what Karl Malone would be? He wouldn't play 4. He'd be a 5. A 5 that nobody could guard. So stop doing that. If you know basketball and you know guys who actually can play, you're not going to say silly stuff to go, well, they're just bigger, stronger, and faster. They're not. Luka's not faster than most people who deliver my mail. He's not. You can't guard him, but the man can't jump over a phone book. Neither can Joker, but nobody can guard them. And so they're not freakish athletes. They're incredibly skilled players. Giannis, who's one of my favorite players. I think he's one of your favorite players. Obviously, you're a Bucks fan. Giannis is a 2-time MVP. He's a finals MVP. He is not one of the most skilled players in the history of the NBA. He is not. That's just a fact. And yet, because of his sheer will and his effort and his relentless play, he's made himself into a dominant player. But he's not the most skilled. If you made basketball down to just skills, Anthony Davis is more skilled than Giannis. It's a fact. It's a fact. Sabonis is more skilled than Giannis. But would you pick either one of them over Giannis? You would not. So if we're going to tell the story, we need to tell the whole story, not just bits and pieces or cherry pick different eras and stuff. It all matters. I'm respectful. You are too, Brett. When we do some of our lineups, we say we're not going to kill the guys that were from the pre-merger, right? So we're not going to talk about or downgrade Kuzi, Russell, the Big O, and all those kind of guys because we have to show respect to those iconic players. We didn't see them play. I didn't see Jerry West play, but we know he's a logo, right? So I hate when people just try to water it down. And I didn't get to respond to your post, but I saw some of the comments, and they weren't really making basketball comments. They were basically parroting each other and saying, "I'm done with the '90s," or "We're done with the '80s," or "We're done with the '80s and the '90s." And I'm like, I don't even know what that even means. Either you want to talk basketball or you don't want to talk basketball. But to sit here and have a conversation about great players, or even when we talk about guys who have the greatest handles or the greatest passers of all time, if you don't reach back and acknowledge the greatness from different eras, then you're not really having a true basketball discussion. And the truth of the matter is, if you look at most people's top 10, at least most people who actually know anything about basketball, there's a few guys in the 90s. There's a couple of guys in the 80s in that top 10. That's just a fact. And if you're looking at today's era, I'm talking about players that are playing right now, the only guy that I can think of that are in the top 10 all time, LeBron and Steph. Did I miss somebody? I'm pretty sure that's it. That's playing right now today. Is there anybody else that's a top 10 player? No. The answer is no. So don't hate. I would tell the players of today, be better, win more titles. Don't be so obsessed with numbers. It's great. I love that the fact that the NBA is evolving, but it's evolved to the point now where regular season games look like the All-Star game, and that's not basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the frustrating part to me. It's just because they're like, "Oh, I'm done with the '80s and '90s," but if we don't look back to the '80s and '90s, then, like you said, we can't really have a true basketball conversation. Like, you can't have a conversation of the greatest passers alive without acknowledging Magic, or the greatest defenders without acknowledging, Moncrief, Payton, Hakeem.
Or John Stockton, even John Stockton. Like you can show. Look, I hated John Stockton, but I hated him the same way people hate Pat Bev. You hate him because he's not on your team, but you acknowledge that John Stockton was a hell of a basketball player.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I just wanted to get your take on that because I thought it was interesting. Because I'm like, all right, well, MJ can't go left, and now we're canceling the '80s at night. We're just canceling basketball at this point.
It never happened.
Guess we're all watching ABA games at this point.
Well, I tell you what, if we canceled the '80s and there's no Magic and there's no Bird, then there's no NBA today. So we wouldn't be watching the NBA. We'd be watching like bowling or curling or something like that, right?
That's fair.
They literally saved the league. So now you're not done with it. You're actually watching basketball because two guys from the '80s saved the league.
So our next topic, Mo, is it's an interesting one. We had Udonis Haslam said that Chris Bosh was more important than LeBron James during the Big Three era. If Bron went down, you could bring in D Wade, and it's not the same player, but you're going to get similar results. We couldn't simulate it. We didn't have another CB. If that went down and he got hurt, we didn't have another one of those. Now, listen, I'll say this. I understand what he's trying to say because they really didn't have another Chris Bosh guy who could space the floor, but they also didn't have another LeBron James. Wade could replicate some of the things that LeBron can do, but there's no way 2012 Wade could replicate what 2012 LeBron was doing. So
No.
as much as I agree that Bosh was mega important, I think it's a little misguided to say that LeBron was not the most important player on that team.
I'm with you. And look, I believe it's the 2013 LeBron is one of the greatest seasons. Well, am I right? Is that 2013 when LeBron had what most people would say is one of, if not the greatest season in NBA history? No, D Wade can't replicate that. And I have a lot of respect for UD, a pro's pro, but the reality is this. I would argue that out of the big three, Chris Bosh was the easiest to replace. You can't replace LeBron James. Period. D Wade, the best version of D Wade might have come close, but in 2012 he wasn't the best version of D Wade, so he wouldn't have been able to replicate what LeBron could do. The reality is we're talking about a dominant, transcendent player. I like Chris Bosh, but nobody's ever going to put Chris Bosh in that context of being a dominant, transcendent player. He was a very good player, an all-star caliber player. The best player on a Raptors team led them to the playoffs. But when you put him together with two other legitimate superstars, he rightfully fit into the third, you know what I mean? Like he was rightfully put into the third role. He was the third option. The same way when Kevin Love and Kyrie paired with LeBron, it was natural and it made sense that Kevin Love became the third option because LeBron and Kyrie were more spectacular. They were more dominant basketball players. I like Chris Bosh, but I'm gonna have to disagree with UD on this. I would argue that without Chris Bosh, if you've got LeBron and D Wade, I think the Heat could still get to the finals. Without LeBron, you're not getting out the East.
Yeah, this could be an entire episode in itself, but I've always said that I full-heartedly agree that 2013 LeBron is the greatest single season player of all time. And that I know it's tough. I know there's a lot of great, single individual seasons, but I think that 2013 LeBron is just too tough to beat in that regard, just because of how complete he was. So, yeah, I agree.
It's up there. It's debatable in my opinion, but I don't think it's a crazy comment because if you look at everything that he did numbers wise, what he accomplished, which obviously is the more important thing, he didn't just put up numbers. He led them to the championship and obviously was the finals MVP. And when you put up those kind of numbers and ultimately win it all, like I said, that's pretty much one of the most dominant seasons I've ever seen. It's in my top two automatically.
Yeah, that's fair. And you could argue that he should have been the DPOY. They gave it to Marcus Hall, who didn't even make the all defensive first team that year.
Yeah, explain that. How did that happen? That is an example. I know sometimes LeBron can go overboard and say that he thinks the media doesn't love him, but when something like that happens and he has the season that he had, and I watched him and I watched what he did on both ends of the floor. Yes, I agree. That season he should have won Defensive Player of the Year, clear cut.
He absolutely was amazing, Gene. 100% agree with you.
No argument at all, Gene. 100% agree.
So, I figure we better touch on a couple of current NBA topics. Why don't we start off with the Minnesota Timberwolves? Obviously, this is a team that was already struggling because they just lost Cat, torn meniscus. If he needs surgery, he's out 4 to 6 months. If they can just rehab it, 4 to 6 weeks. So I guess it's going to be huge to see how bad the tear truly is. And then just tonight, Anthony Edwards went down with a sprained ankle. So who knows how long he's going to be out. That could be a couple weeks. Mo, do you see the Timberwolves falling a couple spots, or do you see them being able to tread water and stay atop the West or close to it, or what do you think happens without Ant and Cat?
Well, they didn't just lose their two best players; they lost their two leading scorers, and you could argue that in different ways, they for sure lost their best shot creator. I don't know how you replicate what the two of those guys do because I think combined they give you about 47, 48 points a game. And not to mention around 12, 15 rebounds. They're not going to be able to replicate that. So they are going to fall in the standings. Looking at in a perfect world, they're able to play, let's say, almost 500 basketball, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. They're going to fall.
Yeah, you know what?
Gene just said what I said. Yeah, I think they're going to tumble in the standings. They are.
Man, that you know what? Months ago, I put in a futures bet at the local casino down the road that the Timberwolves would win their division. That's not looking too hot now.
You know what though? They had it. You know what we can't foresee is injuries.
Right? Yeah. No. Hey, Justin, thank you for stopping in the chat, sir.
Justin, I just hope that they're able to get both of those guys healthy before the playoffs because I think if they're whole and they're healthy, I can see the Timberwolves in the conference finals.
I think they'll tumble. I think they'll avoid the play-in. I think they'll stay in the top 6. But yeah, I think they'll. This is a huge loss, and if they had just lost Cat, I think that they could survive and actually maintain close to that 1 seed. But losing both, yeah, no shot. So I think as long as they get if they get Ant healthy, they can still make a decent run in the playoffs. But without Cat, our dream of like the Timberwolves finally going back to the conference finals for the first time since KG. I just don't think it happens without Cat. But I think I can get to the second round with Ant and Gobert.
Yeah. Look, if you got a healthy Ant along with what they have minus Cat, they'll be different. But I think that I think you get a heavier dose of Ant. So I do still think they have the potential to make a run. But this is what I'll say: if they're going to go into the playoffs, and they're going to be a lesser version of what they are, let's say they end up playing a team that most people would say they're going to beat, Golden State. I don't think they beat Golden State in a series. I don't. I think Ant can average 30 plus in that series and they still lose. If they don't have a second guy that can give them 20 plus a night, they're not going to beat Golden State in a series.
No, absolutely. It'll be Mike Conley and like Rudy Gobert trying to catch up with the scoring load, but neither of them are suited for that at this point in their career.
And Brett, I love Mike Conley, consummate pro, underrated performer. This is what I'll say though. I think a guy like Naz Reid, I appreciate you, Justin. Naz Reid is probably the best backup center in basketball. Naz Reid can give you 16 or 18 points per game in extended minutes. So I do think he can take up some of that slack. But when he starts, that also it takes a stab at your depth, right? Because now he's a starter, so it changes your rotations. I think a healthy Golden State, like Chris just pointed out, I wouldn't want to be one of the top seeds and have to play Golden State in the first round. I just wouldn't.
No, absolutely. My concern with Golden State is how old they are, and I'm concerned if they'll stay healthy going into the playoffs. But I think that's kind of what makes the second half of the season so unpredictable. Is just trying to figure everything out. It's like, all right, can these older teams really stay healthy down the stretch? And I'm just kind of waiting for that inevitable Chris Paul injury at this point.
Here's the thing, though. So much is dependent upon matchups. Like the Warriors are a small team, right? You would think that teams like the Timberwolves could just kind of overpower them with their size and their defense. But if the pace is fast and it's quickened and you're minus Cat and everything is on Ant's hands, I'm not arguing that Ant couldn't still be the best player in that series, but I don't think that he alone would be enough. Not if you're going to get the best version of Steph and you're going to get what Kuminga's doing right now, what Wiggins has done prior to him taking his leave of absence, along with what Draymond has. Like everybody's clicking. Yes, Clay's not what he was 3 or 4 years ago, but Clay coming off the bench suddenly becomes one of the best bench guys in the NBA. They're different, and they're older, but they do have some young blood. So when you look at Kaminga, when you look at Projetsky, when you look at what they're getting from Moody, when you're looking at what they're getting for Trace Jackson, their young guys actually play a lot of minute and are very impactful and productive. I'm just saying, I'm not talking championship, but I can see Golden State ending one of the favorite seasons.
No, that's fair. Klay Thompson, since he's moved to the bench, has almost looked I think he's looking as close to prime Klay as we're really going to get from him.
I think this new position though. I think Brett. This is how Klay extends his career. Do you know what I mean? And it's a lot for a guy who's been a star, who's been the second guy. It makes all the to be able to take that step back and recognize this is my new role going forward. I love it if he can embrace it and stay in Golden State. I think he's on board for this season. If Klay hits free agency next season, I'm not so sure he stays with Golden State.
Yeah, I think they'll look to lock him up this year, and I think he's changed his tune a little bit and said he's willing to take a little bit of a discount to stay with the Warriors, which I think is the absolute best scenario for both parties at this point.
Agreed 100%. Yeah, no doubt. Look, I hope he finishes his career with Golden State. And like I said, I'm with you. I think the second half of the season is going to be the big sprint towards seeding. It's going to be interesting. I think that when you look at what Golden State can do when they can play at pace, think about this. They got blown out by 50 a week ago. Turned around a couple of nights ago, beat your Bucks by 35. So I that's how I approach Golden State going into the postseason. They could very well lose in the first round, Brett, or they could be in the conference finals. It wouldn't shock me either way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I really finally was able to go back and watch that Bucks Warriors game, and I'm going to give Doc some credit here, and I'm not saying I'm buying in on the Doc Rivers is leading the Bucks to the finals train, but I am saying that the defense has looked much better, under Doc Rivers. That being said, that defense still doesn't look comfortable guarding a motion offense, like the Warriors really provided. They look much better guarding like north to south, but you start making them move laterally, like trying to navigate all those screens. Yeah, no, they did not look comfortable at all. The old legs got the better of them.
Matchups are going to matter so much in both conferences. I really feel like for you to get the best version of Milwaukee, their offense has to control the pace of the game. So whatever you're doing in your 2-man game, or I'll say the 3-man game, because when you run screen and roll with Giannis and Dame, obviously Giannis dives. As soon as Giannis dives, the defense collapses. So either Dame is raising up or Brook Lopez man is cheating and Brook Lopez is open for a 3. So that 3-man game, when it's really efficient, it makes their defense better because then they can get back and set up.
And Justin, I absolutely agree. Smash that over. 10 sounds easy for Wiggins right now. Well, Mo, it's time for your segment.
My segment.
We got to do better with Mo better. So, Mo, would you like me to start or would you like to start?
You know what? You can go first and I'll back you up. I got you.
Okay, so my do better I'm calling out this week. It's Tom Thibodeau. Jalen Brunson suffered an injury playing heavy minutes in the middle of January, and I think this is something that Tom Thibodeau really has to work on. It's frustrating to me that he gets hurt, and the next game, I think Josh Hart played 47 minutes. This is completely unnecessary. Ooh, what did he parlay with? I got to know now. What did he parlay with? But this is completely unnecessary. He doesn't need to be playing his starters 47 minutes or key guys in a game in the middle of like February. And he doesn't need to be playing his guys, 42, 43 minutes. Like, this is why Tom Thibodeau-led teams have a limited shelf life, because by the time they get to the playoffs, they're gassed because they're sitting there playing 35, 40, 42 minutes in the regular season. Now they're all hurt and banged up, and those minutes do add on. So I think that Tom Thibodeau's got to do better, and I think what he's got to do is simple. He's got to really trust the bench a little more, and he's got to get his starters some more rest.
It's interesting because you kind of took my take, but but we're cool. We're cool because it's a great take. Look, I've always said that Tom Thibodeau is a good basketball coach, but I think there's a ceiling with the way that Tom Thibodeau coaches his teams, and more importantly, how he runs his starters or his cores into the ground by having them play these crazy amount of minutes. The wear and tear on their bodies. Because remember, when you watch the Knicks play, one of the things that the Knicks do, they outwork most teams. The Knicks in the regular season are playing almost at a playoff intensity. So if you're playing that way throughout the regular season, there's a wear and tear on you physically and mentally. By the time you get to the playoffs and you're supposed to step your game up and play at a playoff level, you don't have another level to go to. You've maxed out where you've gone. I knew they were going to win their first round series, but because I knew that Cleveland had an obvious flaw that they exploited. You cannot play Mobley and Jarrett Allen extended minutes because they're both zero range players, and you are basically compromising your floor spacing. I think Cleveland has learned that lesson the hard way so far this year, and they're better about it. But I digress. My point is this: if you have Tom Thibodeau as your coach, and you have a star basketball player, and he's got him playing 40 plus minutes, not to mention he's your sole shot creator, Tom Thibodeau will run that guy into the ground. He shortens careers. Ask Noah, ask Dang, ask Derrick Rose. I'm just saying. To me, if I'm a New York Knicks fan, if I'm the New York Knicks front office, I have to really consider offering Tom like a really cool, cushy job up in the organization. But I think they need another coach who's got a more creative mindset and uses a more diverse offense. Because really, what Tom Thibodeau specializes in more than anything is another version of ISO ball. If he's not running screen roll or ISO for Jalen Brunson, he's doing the same thing on the left wing with Julius Randle. And I just don't think that's a creative way of basketball. That's not how you win in today's NBA. You win in today's NBA with motion and ball movement.
No, I 100% agree with that. He has a 7-leg parlay. Wiggins over 9.5. That sounds good to me. Vooch getting a double double. That's actually a good bet. Vooch is a double double machine. Same with Sabonis. You know what? I think that's I think this actually looks pretty good. I think I'm worried about Peyton Pritchard grabbing 2.5 rebounds, but or 3 rebounds, but I think it looks good, honestly.
I think your weak spot is Pritchard.
No, I agree. I that's kind of just been my issue with Tibbs, and I still think that he has a spot in the game for sure. I think he really gets teams to work hard, do the little things. He really does bring out a lot of great traits in teams. I just need somebody else to really control the minutes and the load for these guys at this point.
He might be he's a good head coach. He's a great assistant coach. And I just think that his style, it just shortens careers. It just does. And ultimately, look, I think New York fans, this isn't breaking news. Knicks fans tend to overrate their teams from time to time. It's great for the league when New York is relevant. It really is. I don't see the Knicks as title contenders, even if they're 100% healthy. But I do think they could maybe get out of the second round. But I wouldn't bank on it. I just think that they don't have enough firepower overall.
No, I agree. Mo, it's time for the segment. It's time to do the thing that I've been looking forward to all week. I've shuffled my list. I've done it multiple times at this point. Guys, it is time to give you our top 5 shooters of all time. How cool is that?
Oh, it was all time.
Yeah, no, you're going to nail the 7-legger. I believe in you, Justin. So,
Justin's going to make some money.
With some guys I have in the honorable mentions. And if I accidentally name anybody from your list, I apologize. So, got me Kyle Korver.
That's a great pick.
This one was tough to put in the honorable mentions, but this kid, yeah, he's older than me, but this dude could shoot. There's one thing that Corver could do. He could shoot, and the Hawks really utilized his shooting threat. Coming off pin downs is one of the most terrifying things the defense is. When you saw Corver getting a screen, you knew you were cooked.
He had a really quick release too. Like Kyle Korver was one of those guys that if he got any space, the ball was already released. He had a quick release, much like Klay Thompson's.
I also have Damian Lillard in my honorable mentions.
Wow, a lot of people would have Dame in top 5.
I know, and it's so tough, right? I think Dame does get a boost because of how most of his shots are off the dribble and how deep he takes them, degree of difficulty. It made it really tough for me. But also, this is a really tough list. In a league of shooters, this is a really tough list to crack.
I'm impressed that Dame can shoot from that distance without breaking form. Like, he can shoot from 40 feet out without breaking form, and that's crazy.
Oh, yeah. A couple more honorable mentions, and these are this one's tough to say because he's been in my top 5 shooters list for so long, but he finally got bumped down to 6. I got Larry Bird. He finally got knocked out. I finally had to put somebody in over him.
Wow, you knocked out Larry Legend finally. Okay.
It was tough. It was so tough for me, but I just had to do it because there's somebody in that I added, and it just kind of moved everybody a step back. But well, normally we start lists, from 5 to 1. Mm-hmm. This one's going to start 1 to 5 because I think that we all know who number 1 is.
All right, so if you do a list, because every now and then when you and I do a list, our lists almost end up being identical. So just for the people out there, I want Brett, you pick your list, and then if we're same, I'm just gonna go same. Now, to no surprise, breaking news, we both agree who number 1 is. That's an easy one.
Yeah, number 1, guys, it's Jose Calderon, Raptors legend.
Not Smush Parker. Damn.
Had to go with the dude who holds the record for highest free throw percentage in a season, right?
No doubt.
But I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. Number 1 on my list is Steph Curry. When we talk about guys who revolutionized the game of basketball, he's right up there with the best of them. The way he shot from deep, he's doing stuff that we had never seen before. When I first saw him doing things like that, I almost thought he was going to get benched, as ridiculous as it sounds, because I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. That's not what a traditional point guard does. He was breaking the rules of basketball to such an extent. I'm like, what's going on? Is this offense? Are they going to bench this guy? Is he going off script? I didn't know what to think, and that's how incredible that was to watch. So, number 1 on my list, Steph Curry.
I'm old enough to remember that when the point guard took shots like that, you would hear a whistle, and then he'd be getting subbed out. And that's where we are in the NBA today now. Now, depending on who it is still, but that's a good shot for Steph. That's a good shot for Dame. That's a good shot from anybody who has lethal range. Even though he's not quite the shooter that Steph is, that's a good shot for Luka. I actually think Luka shoots better the deeper he is. So everybody's kind of unique that way, but it's getting to the point now, Brett, in this current NBA, guys are taking more threes than they are twos. Like, if a guy takes 19 shots, you look up and go, 12 of his 19 shots were threes. That's where we are in today's NBA.
Yeah, I agree. I remember it being wild when somebody, early 2010s, you see people take 10 threes in a game or 11. You're just like, what? What is going on? This doesn't happen. But now it's just all right, half the league is now averaging 12 threes a game. So,
facts. So, yeah, look, number 1, we're total agreement. Steph Curry. He's that guy. Changed the game.
Number 2, Mo, this is where I changed it. This is when I did the deeper research. I was like, I got to do it. I got to put him on the list. Number 2, Kevin Durant.
Interesting.
I think
he's a great shooter. He is. I guess when I'm thinking about shooters, you're thinking about shooters in a sense, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're talking free throw line out, right?
Yeah.
So it's your free throw line, it's the mid range, and it's what you can do from behind the arc, the combination of the 3, right?
Yeah. Try to I try to help out some of the older guys because I do think there are a lot of great shooters in the 80s and 90s, but they were hindered by the fact that they didn't allow them to take a lot of threes. So their deep shot for them, like the equivalent of a three, was pretty much a deep two past the
Right.
free throw line.
Agreed. Right. I got you.
So I should have clarified that earlier. When I say shooters, I mean deep shot. I mean free throw line and above. So to me,
Okay.
that's almost where Kevin Durant really separates himself. That's where he puts himself into this. He's an elite three-point shooter from everywhere on the floor, but he's also one of the greatest mid-range shooters of all time. So,
Yeah, I actually like that you put him in there. That's different. And when you're talking about from the all three levels, the combination of the three, I think KD does belong there because he's lethal at all three levels. And you cannot deny the fact that he's 7 feet tall. That release point, you're not blocking it, even if you get a good contest.
yeah, and at number 3, the guy that I had was this close to passing KD. However, the tiebreaker was volume to me. So, wrong way. So number 2 is almost Steve Nash, who's my number 3.
That's interesting. Just put it out there. Point of view. I'm actually have Nash number 2. I have Nash number 2. I'll just put it out there, everybody. I know a lot of people are like, what, Steve Nash? And I'm like, we're talking about free throw line, the mid range, and from the three. People don't realize that Steve Nash was a lethal shooter in every level. And had he taken more shots, he could have easily averaged 20 plus points a game with ease. But because he was such a high volume assist guy, shot creator for others, he didn't. But yeah, I've got Steve number 2.
Yeah, I almost had him too. I flip-flopped, but I was like, you know what? KD takes like 10 more shots a game than Steve while maintaining the efficiency, so that was the tiebreaker. But man, if you don't think that Steve Nash can score the basketball, ask the Dallas Mavericks, who decided that their big strategy against him was to stay glued to the shooters, make Steve Nash a score. He responded with a 3-game stretch of averaging 40 on him. And they're just like, all right, we cannot do this anymore. That is not going to happen. He can score the ball, it turns out. And the only knock on Steve Nash was really simple. He didn't shoot enough. He peaked at 13 shots a game, which, judging comparing by the rest of the guys, even before him and after, that's not a lot of shots. So
that's crazy when you think about it. But yeah, Steve Nash, great shooter, period. Great shooter from all levels.
Number 4, this one was tough. I want Reggie Miller. This Reggie Miller was he's an all-time great. He was so far ahead of the league during his time. He's a great shooter off motion, off so many actions. He could pull it up if he needed to. I know a lot of people are going to go, well, like Dame can pop it from further and Clay, but I think relative to his era, I think Reggie Miller is right up there, just as good as any of them, and even better. So this one was tough for me. But I went Reggie Miller because he's just such a threat from all three levels, especially in that free throw line up area. It doesn't matter what action you needed him to; he was money.
So here's your list. Your list is Steph, KD, Nash. My list is Steph, Nash, Reggie Miller. That's how close our lists are. And I'm like you. I'm taking into account Reggie Miller's error, which by far is it's literally night and day the amount of physicality. Look, guys got beat up when they had the ball in their hands. Let alone, do you know what they were doing to guys off the ball? They were doing legal muggings off the ball, and Reggie Miller had to fight through all that to come free to catch and shoot. If Reggie Miller could play today with the spacing that he has, or if he can play, let's say if he got to play with the Warriors with the way they space the floor and move the ball, like, my God.
That would be absolutely terrifying if you had a green light to actually shoot like 10 threes a game.
Right. Imagine that.
And then my number 5, Mo, I think this one, at this point, it's pretty obvious. It's Ray Allen. I guess it's not too obvious because another honorable mention I was thinking about. Obviously, there was Bird. I could have put here Dame Time, and another one, obviously, Klay Thompson. But once again, I think relative to era, once we really compare them, I think Ray Allen really does stand out. I think he was a phenomenal. Just people think of Ray Allen as just a 3-point shooter because of his time with Boston, but this dude was a straight up lethal shot creator and playmaker when he was on the Sonics. When he's on the Bucks, I'm still mad that we traded him, but we're not going to do that right now. But yeah, no, I got Ray Allen at 5.
I think people, because they caught Ray, a lot of today's fans caught Ray late in his career when he was with the Celtics. And when he was with the Celtics, he was a catch and shoot player. But that was an older, different Ray in a different role. A lot of people don't remember the Ray that I came up with when he was at UConn in college, and then he came into the pros with the Sonics, with your Bucks. Like, people forget that the Ray Allen could cross people over and bang on you. Ray Allen was dunking on cats' heads. Like, they don't realize that Ray Allen had hops. Go back and look at the game. Look at the game. Remember the nickname Jesus Shuttleworth from the movie. Like, I'm just saying that Ray Allen was that dude. Go look at the movie He Got Game. He lived up to it. Ray Allen to me is so underrated because it's almost like he had two careers. He was the focal point as a Sonic, as a Buck, and then he was more of a third option as a Celtic in a different role. But I actually have Ray fourth. You're a beat ahead of me because the guy that you said was honorable mention, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I've got him at number 5. I've got Larry Legend.
I'm not even mad at Larry Legend because I wanted to keep him in here so bad just because he had touch from all 3 levels. It didn't matter what you did. That free throw line back range, he was money.
And the only difference is Bird didn't, again, to his era, I think Larry Bird took 2 or 3 threes a game tops. Like, he didn't shoot a lot of threes. He shot what today's game would be considered a bad percentage shot. Larry Bird shot a lot of deep twos. But he was a terrific shooter. Those deep twos, those were money too. What I like about Larry Bird is he was effective against contested shots. I mean, a lot of guys can't shoot with contact. Larry Bird, I think he fed off of contact. He was like the best all-around shooter that I saw for his era. I'm not trying to say anything like he's a greater shooter than Steph. That's another conversation if you start talking about their all-around games and things of that nature. But I've got Larry Bird number 5, and it was a tough one for me as well. I really was giving a lot of consideration to Klay Thompson and Dame Lillard. I do. But look, Dame, it would have been easy to pick Dame because Dame has Harlem Globetrotter range, right? We know this. But I was doing it in another way. I was thinking of all the big shots and the signature moments that each of them had, and that made the decision easier for me because Larry Bird has a ton of signature moments.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with that. Oh, and sprained his ankle, but came back to play. It looks like dropped 44 against the Pacers. Good stuff, man.
How do I feel about that? Well, that's one, Ant's a special player, and 2, as fun as they are to watch, the Pacers probably play as good a defense as you and I play.
Ray felt automatic for sure. So to recap my list for my greatest shooters of all time, free throw lining up, I had 1, Steph Curry, 2, KD. It's just insane that they were on the same team at one point.
That's insane. And Klay Thompson. You know what? We could have. You just gave me a subject for next week's shows. The greatest shooting teams of all time.
I think at that point we're gonna start at number 1 again because it's gonna be that 2017.
It's gonna be the Warriors, right? So we already know what number 1 is gonna be, right? It's gonna be those Warriors.
The scary part is the Warriors could take up the top 5 spots on that list, and I wouldn't even feel wrong doing it. Like, if we literally just said 2014 to 2019 Warriors, like, I'm all right with it.
That's actually true. I was trying to think. Well, you know what? One of those Suns teams, I can't remember which one for sure, but one of those Suns team, it wasn't just Nash. I think they had Q Richardson, they had Joe Johnson, and I think both of them were shooting around 40% from 3. Like, They had it all at one point, and then everybody left to get paid.
Yeah, no, I would say that too. Those Phoenix teams, the '94 Rockets could light you up from deep really quick. A lot of people forget about them. Or the '09 Orlando Magic were another one. Jameer
Oh, that's
Nelson, Rashard Lewis, Hedo Turkoglu, Aaron
yes,
Aflalo.
yeah. Look, and they had the perfect guy. You sunk in on D12. They found the shooters, and that's how they beat you.
Yeah, that's the only reason we didn't get that Kobe LeBron final that everybody thought we were going to get.
Well,
Dwight Howard manhandled everybody on the inside, and you couldn't help because everybody else was elite 3-point shooters.
yeah, that's one of the reasons.
That's fair. We did have more chances for it, but unfortunately, we never got that. One of the bigger what ifs in NBA history for sure is what if who would win in a Kobe versus LeBron finals in
You
'09?
you want to spark up a debate? I'll spark up a debate real quick. What I know for certain is Kobe 150% wanted all that smoke. He wanted that. He wanted that. He was so disappointed that LeBron didn't get to the finals.
Yeah, no, he looked like he took it personal because he just
Uh,
came in and walked the Magic down. They just did not stand a chance, unfortunately.
that actually is it's not the most exciting NBA finals I ever saw, but I thought that was the most in control, the most comfortable Kobe looked in a finals. Like he made a pass on a fast break to Paul Gasol. It's one of the best passes I ever made. He basically did a 360 and dished and dropped it off, and Gasol caught it and finished. Like, look, Kobe could do some things that very few humans could do. And it was fun to look as a Lakers fan, as an NBA fan. I enjoyed watching him do his thing at the highest level. I really did want to see those two meet. That you want those epic battles. And so while I'm not rooting against small market NBA teams, I'm really not. But if you're asking me in a perfect world, would I want to see Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown play against Joker and them again? Or meet Joker in the finals, that would be interesting. But if we were going for box office, if we were going for star power, you'd actually want to see them play against either Golden State or the Lakers for star power, right? This would be LeBron. If this were going to happen, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just talking about in terms of box office and what makes people bring people together. You're talking about the two dominant franchises in the history of basketball. Now, if we're living in more reality, I could see I could see the Bucks. What if the Bucks matched up against, let's say, the young upstart Oklahoma City Thunder? That would be interesting. Or if they matched up against the defending champion Nuggets, how would that series go? So
It's
I'm
say
gonna
if they matched up against the Thunder, it'd almost feel like deja vu of when the Thunder last made the finals, right? Young upstart Thunder team with a new and exciting big three runs into the best
right,
player in the world.
right. Well, yeah, that's a great point. I remember watching that series, and I was entertained by the series, even though it was a 5-game series. And I think we all we knew the Heat were going to win. We just didn't know how they were going to win. If the Thunder were going to extend it, or they were going to take him out. And the interesting part about that series was it was a 5-game series, but I would say I think 3 or 4 of those games were all competitive. Like the young Thunder, they couldn't execute down the stretch, but they were very competitive because they were just so naturally talented, Brett. Remember, you're talking about Westbrook was 21 and Durant was 21. I think Harden was 20. Ibaka was 19 or 20. Like young, talented. They had their futures ahead of them, and it just never came to be again.
The Thunder could draft another team with other picks, and there would still be. Honestly, though, with the way the Thunder drafted, they'd probably somehow find like 8 more contributors, like all-star caliber talents out of because they really haven't missed with many of their recent picks. Like the
Let,
big picks that they've really missed on, it feels like we're like, I think Josh Giddey hasn't lived up to expectation. We can say Poku, who they just released.
let
But
me
other
ask
than
you
that, they've been money with their picks.
And you know what? I would say that Getty has lived up to his potential. I think the problem for Getty is Jalen Williams has elevated. Like before, Getty was the second best player, and then Chet came along, and Getty's the third best player, and then Jalen Williams elevates his game. And now, and the truth of the matter is, Getty's a very good player, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to be anybody's second or third best player on a title-winning team. I think the role that he's in for them will fit him. The question will be going forward, Brett, when it's time to pay all these guys, are they going to be able to keep Getty? My guess is no. You're not giving up SGA. You're not giving up Jalen Williams. You're not giving up Chet Holmgren. But if you have to lose a Getty because he's going to ask for, I don't know, 3 years, 60 plus or $80 million, then you're going to lose Getty. That's the problem. Who can they pay and keep? Because you want to keep that core intact. And I'll say this, he hasn't won a championship. But if you were talking about what is the GM's job, the GM's job is to draft well and set your team up for success by the deals that he make going forward. Sam Presti, Brett, might be one of the greatest GMs in the history of basketball, and he's not won a title. But if you think about what he's done in the draft, and like they just said in the chat, even now with this young team that they have, Brett, the Thunder have like 20 picks. They have more picks. He has so many picks now. I'm wondering, like, what is Sam Presti? He's going to have to. It's to the point now. It's use them or lose them. He's got that many picks, and to his credit, he and his scouts, they have not missed on many picks.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Giddy's a bad player. I just don't think I think needs to be the lead playmaker because the shot hasn't really developed and his off-ball game isn't there. So I think he's just optimized being on the ball, but being on a team with SGA and Jalen Williams, he's not going to get those on-ball reps that will really suit him. So they didn't miss with that pick. I just don't think his situation right now is optimal for Josh Giddey.
Brett, let me ask you this. Do you think Josh Giddey, could he be more effective if he played with Sacramento, if he played with Sabonis and Fox? Because Fox doesn't look to playmate. I know they list him as a point guard, but let's be honest, Fox is essentially a two guard. And they run their offense through Sabonis a lot of times, but couldn't Giddey take some of that playmaking responsibility away from him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would be a fun spot, letting Fox run around off the ball. I could only imagine people trying to contain a De'Aaron Fox backdoor cut. So I think that would be a fun spot for him for sure. And I think he's going to be somebody that they're going to look to trade coming up here just because they're going to have to pay the other guys eventually.
And trust me, nobody wants to chase De'Aaron Fox nowhere. I watched last night. The Lakers were up 19 in the first quarter. The Kings went on a 52-20 run. Game over.
That's fair. Well, Mo, that's all the topics we got for today. Is there anything you'd like to say, sir?
Just enjoyed doing the N1 podcast, chopping up basketball with you. Love all the support, the feedback from the chat. Appreciate people like Justin and everybody else that's supporting us. Thank you for coming out, supporting me and Brett live, watching the show. Check out all the content that we have on the Wire to Wire network. Y'all are giving us a listen right now. What we need for you to do, a like, a sub, a follow, show that support. We love you. We appreciate you. Wire to Wire network. Check us out.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, there's an And1 Facebook page. Definitely give that a follow. And I'm working on it, and I can say that the And1 Discord is now done. So we got a Discord channel now. So
that's what's up.
The invite for that is actually on the And1 Facebook page. So if you want to see us do any more lists, go to the Facebook page. Let us know. I love doing lists. But thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you all next week at the same time.